This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me, as usual, are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got 4 main reviews. We're going to kick off with On the Line, followed by Punch and The Island, and then we have Race for Glory, Audi versus Lancia. Our short shot is Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? In Springtrapped. And then in our DTV throwback, we have the Soskers film Vendetta. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is On the Line. In Alderney, UK in 1964, a telephone operator ends up being the pivotal piece of a drama unfurling which puts professional integrity and relationships to the test. I have to admit, I had no idea what this was going to be like going into it. I have to admit, I was expecting something like a Bondit media finance film. What was the one where the guy was... Oh, The Hot Seat. You know, remember The Hot Seat?
Yeah.
I was... Yeah, that's it. I was expecting something like that, I have to admit.
Mel Gibson has done one of those called On the Line. Yeah,
that's exactly, yeah. When he's like a shock jock radio DJ or something.
Yeah.
That's the one. So this did surprise me, but even right at the beginning, right from the opening credits, I was intrigued because, you know, they'd put a lot of care and attention into those opening credits to resemble a certain type of film, you know, of that period, basically. So even then, when, you know, all these sort of graphics and things are coming up and the music, right then I'm thinking, okay, this is a bit different to what I was expecting. What we get is it's a COVID film, basically, isn't it? At the end of the day, this is a COVID production. It's a ship in the bottle. We've seen variations on this, and yeah, a lot of the time they do work really well. For example, Solid Rock Trust that we reviewed right at the beginning of last year. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a similar sort of idea. There was the one with Frank Grillo where he was a getaway driver. I don't know if you saw that one. It was on Netflix.
Yeah, it's Wheelman.
Wheelman, that was, yeah, I believe so. Tom Hardy did one called Lock, and Ryan Reynolds did probably the first one of this type, which was when he's like been buried in a coffin.
Mm-hmm.
Buried, that's it. And you know, it's literally just him in a box, listen, you know, with people on the phone and stuff like that. So there have been variations of this, and you know, like those films, for me, you know, this worked really well. It starts out as one thing, and then it sort of like morphs into something else. You know, you think it's a thriller about a dangerous psychopath sort of thing, and it kind of is, but it also turns into like a damning report on sort of mental health, you know, following the end of the Second World War and that sort of thing. It was a really interesting watch. Steve, what did you make of it?
Yeah, it was interesting. The thing that kind of got me was, you know, she's there stuck in the middle trying to do this and do that, and it just seemed like everyone was so unhelpful. Like the other people on the other end of the phone just couldn't be asked for what she was saying and put me asked following up with it. And you know, that kind of built the tension for the film and the character in there. But it was, the performances on the other end as well were decent. Sometimes in stuff like this, you know, it can sound like they are literally phoning it in, if you know what I mean. But on this, I thought it actually worked quite well. I know the set wasn't very big and everything, but I thought the attention to detail was really good as well. You know, the art direction was great on it as well. And yeah, I just thought it was actually done quite well. There seems to be a lot of care and attention in every department, really. And yeah. I felt that actually, you know, really helped build the tension and move the story along, and it all worked in its favour.
I thought, yeah, I agree. Rich, what did you make of On the Line?
Well, I've got some observations, but I want to ask, because my experience was kind of framed by a couple of things. And one of them was, I wasn't sure when, I mean, I know we've just read the synopsis from IMDb, which very clearly says Alderney 1964.
That seems late. Actually, yeah, thinking about it, that seems late. I thought this was early 50s.
But does it come up at the start of the film or anywhere what time this is set?
I don't think it does.
Because what's interesting is the set, the year and location are noted on the end credits, like right at the end of the credits, which I thought, wow, I've never seen that before. But basically, Alderney is in the Channel Islands.
That's right. I thought it was Isle of Wight. I must admit, I thought
it's a very small,
very much they're on an island.
So they're in a small island community, and I looked it up. Alderney's got like a population of 2,000. It might have even been less back then. So that's why she's like, everyone knows each other on the island and all this sort of stuff. And she's kind of involved in all their lives and, connecting all these calls. So the other thing that was really throwing me was, and I might be being completely stupid, but it seemed like they had mobile phones because she was contacting people who were on the move. And they were in vehicles and they were heading to petrol stations and stuff. And I was thinking, am I being stupid here? I think
the police had sort of car phones or car radios. I think that's
even when she's talking to one of the people, the lady she's trying to help. It's like, where are you now? It's like, oh, we're just coming past this. I'm sure there was something like that. Anyway, I kept getting distracted by the thinking, how are they talking to these people who are on the move? Because surely they'd be very, landlines, very limited cord. I was just completely sort of pulled out and sort of thrown around by that, thinking, is this kind of, it's now, but it's kind of a retro kind of setting or something? It's like a community that's never moved on, but they've got this kind of, a bit like the John Wick thing. It's very, very modern, but then they're using this old technology and stuff. So so I don't know if that was me just missing something.
I'll be honest, I think the bit you're on about, because there's one part that she does say, I'm at the petrol station using like a phone box one point.
Oh, I see. Okay, that would make sense. Because I was thinking, I was feeling like it was like 2 or 3 times during the film. I was thinking, it sounds like they're on the move or they're going somewhere. But maybe you're right. Maybe they've gone from one place to another. They've picked up the phone. You can hear vehicles in the background, which is why it sort of got that sort of sense of. So it could be that I was just not sort of on the ball enough with it. Yeah, that I was getting thrown. The setup obviously is we've sort of. You've already mentioned it, but it's that kind of one person thing. The call center sort of switchboard operator subgenre, I guess, or sub type of film that we've got, because we've had The Call with Halle Berry, and there was The Guilty, which was then remade with Jake Gyllenhaal. So there's been two of those. There's also a short film I watched recently, which was also about a call operator. I think there's quite a few actually around there. And to an extent, this all goes back to Phone Booth with Colin Farrell. So this is quite a short film. It's very independent, cast of actors who I'm not familiar with, as vocal performances mostly, because it is a one-woman show essentially, apart from the voices on the other end of the line, some of whom I think sounded better than others. There were times when I was thinking, what is elevating this over above just doing it as an audio drama, as a Radio 4 play of the day or play of the week or whatever, which it is. It does feel like that at some times, and you do have to sort of pay attention to the way it's shot and the camera work and stuff like that in this very small, what I thought was what I assumed, like yourself, was a set. It's actually, they filmed it at Avon-Croft Museum in Birmingham, so they've gone to a location where it's been very authentically presented, and they filmed it there, which I think is a very, very clever idea. It's like, why spend limited resources trying to build your own period set when museums have got this sort of stuff all sorted. So that's very good. You get the production value from that. So this film was probably made on tuppence, I would have thought, but they've because they've managed to get that location. and they've been able to invest in the standard of the cinematography and stuff. I think that's really where it sort of comes into its own. I did disengage from it a few times. I wasn't entirely with it, and say there were a couple of reasons I think for that, but overall I found it quite interesting. And it'd say, there are more bombastic versions of this kind of thing. I'd say, but the bigger boat will say whether that I haven't seen the Mel Gibson On the Line to say whether it's say it's set in the world of radio, whether it's a similar kind of thing. But I would say that even though I haven't seen films like The Guilty and The Call, I think The Call has, or is it Kidnap? I can't remember. There's the Halle Berry one anyway. I think that sort of has cutaways to action or something at times. I mean, the only one I can really say that I've seen, which is quite different, is Cellular, which was, but that's quite a different beast. Yeah. It's very much, constantly shifting locations and on the go. It's like the phone device is kind of linking the characters, but you've got all the other stuff going on as well. The original phone booth was more sort of just in that location. Anyway, I'm getting off track. This is a really good, interesting example of a low budget, independently made British movie working with, very limited, budget and resources and stuff, and putting together something really quite interesting. I was, I was confused with stuff, but I was quite interested in, where is this? Where is the location? I want to know more about where it's set and stuff. So actually, I did appreciate the filmmakers actually putting that in the credits so that I could sort of dig a little deeper on the film and stuff. And if I ever get up to Birmingham, I'll probably check out Avon Museum.
Just while we've been talking, I've been thinking about that date as well, and it probably is right. But it's certainly in 1964, because the one of the main protagonists is in an old people's home, and kind of reminiscing about the war. So it makes sense that she's been through that, and that's that. She's in that sort of age bracket. Excuse me. So that probably does fit. And that was the sort of the level of technology back in the early 60s. So I'm quite happy with that. You mentioned coming off like a radio play, and it does to a certain degree. It wouldn't have surprised me if this had started out as a radio play and then was adapted, into a film. But the director Oliver Pern, I think he does enough visually to keep you interested, with various angles and and close-ups and things.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you're just staring at the switchboard, kind of thing. While people are talking, or there's a call coming in and it's sort of drawing your attention to it. So I found this quite compelling to watch, I must admit, and I love the twists when the little bits of information that you glean. Until you realise what's actually happened, and it's is quite shocking and sad in a way. So it was a good watch, this one. So Steve, what are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 7.
I'll join you on a 7. And Rich,
because I wasn't quite as engaged with it, I'm going to go for a 6.
2 7s and a 6 for On the Line. Go check it out. Our next film is Punch. A young girl celebrating her last night out in her hometown is stalked by a mysterious killer in a Mr. Punch mask. So this is not so much a British slasher as a British basher.
You're here all week.
I'm here all week. I thought of that one while I was watching it. So
that's actually a good one. I like it.
Okay, so this is probably the most working class slasher movie I think I've ever come across. You know what I mean? A lot of stuff is either set in a university or college or whatever, or in a reasonably well-to-do neighborhood. This is the arse end of nowhere, sort of like seaside town. You imagine somewhere like. So, sorry, what?
I think it's supposed to be Clacton-on-Sea.
Clacton, it could be.
It's kind of they've gone to various locations to kind of create this one sort of unnamed seaside location. But I was watching it going, that's Hastings. I know that. I know those locations. But then there was other bits. I was like, well, that's definitely not Hastings. Yeah. Then I looked at other bits. So there's a long list of, they went to Brighton and, like you say, Clacton on Sea, Brighton, Hastings, and a few other Canberra Sands. They went into a whole bunch of locations around the sort of southeast and stuff to create their, rundown.
It's the off season, it's winter time in a seaside town, and it is the most desolate sort of place.
Yeah,
loads of arcades and things sort of locked up for the winter months. Not much going on. We got our protagonist, Julia, coming back. Well, she's been back a while. Her dad's committed suicide. Her mum has attempted suicide, I believe, is what's been going on, and she's been staying with her mum for a while, but has decided she wants to go back to university and finish her course. So she goes out with her best mate for one last night, and somehow out of nowhere, this whole urban myth about the Mr. Punch Man suddenly, she's grown up in this town and never ever heard it, but all of a sudden everyone knows about this thing. Oh yeah, we're going to watch out for the Mr. Punch Man, all this sort of stuff. And then we do get this guy dressed in a Mr. Punch mask with his whacking stick, seemingly indiscriminately just killing people for a good chunk of the film, sort of slowly making his way to this girl Julia and her friend. What do you make of it, Steve?
Yeah, it's weird. It is weird because, like you say, he does just kind of like come out of nowhere, but everyone knows about him, but she doesn't, even though she's only been to uni. It's not like she grew up somewhere else or moved into town. And it's not just like they know about him, it's like they're helping him and stuff. It's very weirdly unsettling. To be fair, I thought it was done quite well. I mean, it's a couple of bits is actually quite nasty. I mean, there's a bit where he like attacks two girls who are like on a separated endo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we've seen her before in like other things. I think it's graphic design. She was in that and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
she's been quite a few recently. Can't remember her name that much. I mean, I thought that bit was actually quite nasty. I mean, the rest of it's really just a bit of bashing and stuff like that. But that bit was pretty brutal. The twist wasn't really a twist, really. Saw it coming a mile off.
There is one. It does sort of like trip itself up. There's one bit where you start questioning. It's the old teleporting bit, isn't it? So, well, if he's there, then how is he over there now, sort of thing? And then they start, then you start thinking, well, okay, yeah, and that happened quite early on.
Yeah, I mean, also as well. I mean, if you look at IMDb, it kind of gives it away.
Right. Don't look at IMDb, folks.
Yeah. There's a name there quite early on the cast list. He's not really in it that much, shall we say. I was like, well, why have they got him so far up if he's not on it, if he's not in it that much? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But all in all, yeah, it wasn't bad. I've seen a lot of people calling for like a prequel.
A prequel and a sequel sort of thing. A franchise, which I could see. I must admit, I think it has got legs.
I think it's definitely got prequel legs. Yeah. Just to give a bit more backstory to explain what's gone on and stuff like that. But yeah, all in all, nothing we haven't seen before, but done quite well, to be fair.
It's managed to find a unique angle, you know what I mean? I mean, this, as you say, the actual, the setup and everything is pretty right. It's another, crazy guy chasing girls and killing them sort of thing. But it has got, and it is a very sort of quintessentially English kind of thing. It might be not something we like. It's almost as if somebody decided to make a slasher movie out of Morris men, Morris dancers. It's not something we're exactly proud of, but it is British.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time.
It was the one from years ago, with Jennifer Ellison in, where it was just so British. He was like on a farm.
That's The Cottage.
The Cottage, that was it. Yeah, it's like that, but more rough and ready type thing.
Yeah, yeah. That's as I said, it does feel very working class. This one, Rich, over to you. What do you make of Punch?
I liked it. I was quite warm to it initially because of all, let's say, the familiar locations. I mean, we talked about there was the wolf, werewolf Santa or whatever it was called a few weeks ago, which was set in Hastings, but I didn't believe for a second they actually shot in Hastings. And if they did, they certainly didn't make the most of the location. But here, they've gone out of their way to, they filmed on location. That's, on the seafront, got some nice drone shots and stuff as well. And the beaches and and they've gone to not just one place but multiple places. So there's a bit of big effort to go and get all the different bits that they needed to create this rundown seaside sort of anywhere, everywhere kind of representational sort of not fantasy version, but like non-specific, really sort of gone to waste kind of seaside town location, which, as you say, couldn't be more British, really. I mean, I know America and other places have, equivalents of that. Yeah.
Do you know, the really surprising one, it's actually not in America. It's Niagara. You know Niagara Falls.
Oh, yeah.
They've modelled that place on an English seaside town with all the really tacky rides and arcades and burger joints and all that sort of stuff. If you ever have it's quite funny. People, I think it was Suze Kempler, when she went, she posted online and said, well, yeah, this is what you expect, sort of waterfalls and shit. But if you turn around, the camera face the other way, and there's all these weird, like, dinosaur burger joints and all this sort of weird stuff. Crazy.
Yeah, so I think it is a cut above the other sort of British slasher movies or these novelty British slasher movies that we've seen. So like Nutcracker Massacre came to mind. Yeah. It's from a similar it's from the same sort of wheelhouse, essentially. The guy who directed it, you mentioned Graphic Designs earlier, he directed that. Graphic Desires, sorry. So he's sort of, I mean, he actually hasn't done that many features. He's done a lot of shorts and sort of build up segments and stuff like that. So he's coming from that same world. I mean, Rebecca Matthews, I saw, was on the producer. She's not listed on IMDb for some reason as being associated with it. So she was definitely involved, and she's done all those, loads of those sort of British horror movies that look at some of the stuff like Tom Jolliffe's got involved in writing, all that stuff. There's a whole ton of it. This I felt was a bit different, sort of stood out. This was by Paranoid Android Films, director Andy Edwards' company, or writer and director, I should say. And I think he was producer as well. I thought he did a good job. I think he made the most of the setting and location. The main character, we get introduced to what is effectively our final girl in the story, and she is different to those we're usually involved with, sort of connected with. She's a bit more rough around the edges, and sort of, I would say that this film has a dash of, and I don't know if it's consciously so, but it has a dash of bodies about it, where you've got these young people who are, very at ease, with sexuality and drugs and stuff, and they're a bit obnoxious at times and whatever. I mean, there's a whole I don't know if it was written ages ago or something, but there's a whole sequence in this which is basically a rave scene, which seems like it should have been from like Darklands or something in the 90s, but whether that was intentional or not. But
that scene was quite funny because Punch goes in, he starts killing people, and there's still people dancing around him. It is almost like that scene in John Wick 4.
John Wick. Yeah. It is actually. And again, was that intentional? I don't know, but I think we've seen variations on that kind of thing. But I did think that was a well executed scene. No pun intended. I did like the kill that you mentioned earlier, the baseball bat kill with the actress who I always say looks a bit like Sadie Sink, or different age. She's got the ring through her nose. She's been in, like you say, I didn't see Graphic Designs, but she was definitely in like at least a couple of films we've watched. Sarah Alexandra Marks turns up. She's also from that world of all these films. I liked, it was nice to see her again. The actress who played the main character, I think it was Alina Allison as Frankie. I thought she was good. She's working her way up. She's done a lot of shorts and things, but I thought she was good as the lead. There was all the stuff with her mum, the actress playing her mum. I thought that was quite well done because clearly sort of a lot of issues going on there. So this is kind of, it's what you've seen before, but they've managed to put a little bit of a a twist on it, not just make the Britishness and the seaside town and everything, but also, you know, for good or bad, they've kind of tried to make it a little bit more edgy, you know, with the character, and, you know, not basically do 100% exactly what you would expect these characters to do. It sort of goes off in a few different directions. And I thought the cinematography and the music was good. And, you know, it touches on all the conventions. We've even got a Crazy Ralph kind of character who's like, oh, you got to beware, kind of thing. I know you were saying about that earlier. Mr. Punch uses a voice changer. There's a bit of a scream kind of thing going on there.
That annoyed me. But unfortunately, that's the bit that really sort of grated was the voice.
What, the voice?
Yeah. I mean, it was meant to be, but it was just, it was just a bit, at times, just a bit too much.
I wasn't sure whether they made enough of the, the Punch and Judy kind of thing. I thought there was some nice nods to that, and actually they don't over-explain it, which I think is quite interesting. As like we would sort of naturally, they don't have a lot of references, but there are bits in there, like, you know, he gets on the phone, oh, tell Judy, you know, that kind of stuff, and there's a thing with a copper, and there's these little references to what the Punch and Judy shows are or were, and where he comes from, but they don't establish that at all. There's no there's no prologue set with a small child who's, you know, watching a Punch and Judy show on the seafront or anything like that. There's nothing. There's no, which I think they should have done that a little bit, but they literally do not show any Punch and Judy performance as an indicator. They just introduce this character as Mr. Punch, and that's it. But there's the whole thing that, say, American viewers wouldn't necessarily get, which is how Punch and Judy shows are essentially cancelled now because they're comedy performances about domestic abuse. Yeah. So and all this sort of stuff. So that's where it's kind of coming from, and I thought it was pulling in those bits quite well. But, you know, I kept waiting for him to say that's the way to do it. You know, it's like, and he sort of said a variation on it, but it wasn't the way I quite wanted it to be. So I was a little bit disappointed, which is a stupid thing to be disappointed about, I know, but it was kind of, that is the main line, and you really want that sort of delivered 100% or perfectly. Well, at least I did anyway. But I thought it was pretty good. Take the character and the seaside town, and now I'm not going to go into spoilers and stuff. I know we touched on a little bit earlier, but I did think, as derivative as it was, the way it turned, because we've seen it, you know, in various films, British and otherwise, I thought it was cool. I liked it. It's like added a little bit of, you know, extra color and stuff.
I did. You know, I mean, we'll talk off air in a minute because I don't want to spoil it. But I was kind of surprised as to the direction it went in, and I thought it worked as well. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, what do you make? What do you score?
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely worth a 7. And Rich?
Well, I was hovering on a 6, but I think I've talked myself up to a 7.
Cool. There you go. 3 7s for Punch. Go check it out. Our next film is The Island. When his brother is killed, LAPD officer Mark leaves the city to return to the island he grew up on. Seeking answers and vengeance, he soon finds himself in a bloody battle with a corrupt tycoon who's taken over the island paradise. This is a very straightforward film. Very straightforward. But it's not bad. You know, it's not a bad film. It's just not a surprising film. There's no real bells and whistles here. However, this film sort of made me realize how cynical I've gotten watching this kind of thing. There was 2 characters in this which I automatically pegged as guys who are going to betray Michael J. White. You know, I thought, well, sure, obviously he's going to be, you know, he's going to betray him and all this sort of. Oh, he hasn't. Okay, well, this guy, you know, he's definitely going to be the one who's, you know, somehow going to betray him. And it's like, no, they're just like guys who, you know, loyal to the characters. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, I enjoyed this, but at the same time, you know, it's just nothing special. Steve, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I'll be Yeah, I agree with you, really. I think I knew you mean as well. About who you thought was going to betray, because I thought exactly the same thing.
There's lots of shots of his face looking really pensive, and you think, oh, is he, reaching for the phone and this sort of thing, and you don't know who he's calling, and you think,
yeah, and he's not. He's just trying to do his job.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said to you early on, I mean, I'm not. As you can probably tell, I'm really not well this week. I've got like a throat infection or chest infection or something. Going to doctor in the morning, and I did drift out concentration wise on this one, just because I'm not feeling too good. But like I say, it was pretty much straightforward. Low budget actioner.
Michael J. White wanted a holiday, basically. I think that's.
Yeah, with his wife.
Yeah,
he's got his wife in it again. He's like that I know of. He's like the third or fourth they've done together now.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there could be loads more in the past that I'm not aware of. But yeah, to me, it's a Ron Seal film. Does what it says on the tin.
Exactly. Yeah.
No real bells and whistles. Nothing exciting. And yeah, it's okay. It's not trash, but it's not far off. There's a bit more to it, if you know what I mean.
It was. I mean, the whole setup of the film was just a bit ridiculous as well, really. But we need this guy to die somehow for some reason. Yeah. Just pick the most stupid thing going. Anyway, Rich, what did you make of The Island?
I wasn't sure what to expect going in, but I actually quite liked, as you say, the sort of straightforwardness of it. It's very much in the kind of rhythm of like an 80s or 90s action film about, basically with the Get Carter plot, basically, of your brother's been killed. You got to go back to where you came from, and think. I mean, we saw Ross Boyask use it with Vengeance, and that's probably sort of the closest relation that I would say recently that I can think of. I mean, back in the 90s, we've had all sorts, like I think Hawk's Vengeance kind of did a variation on that plot, and Next of Kin, the Patrick Swayze, I thought so. Usually, though, the death, the motive, the murder that motivates sort of the action, there usually ends up being a bit more to it. And in this case, it was just, I mean, for one thing, sometimes it's a bit of a mystery, something's happened, you've got to find out. In this case, you see it right up front, and it's so arbitrary. It's like he really brought him. He brought it, and then it kind of Michael J. White's character comes over, because we've had an introductory scene, which is the drug deal gone wrong, kind of bust gone wrong kind of thing, where it has a nice action scene to introduce characters, establish who they are, got this kind of buddy cop dynamic going on. Michael J. White is the sort of gruff, stern one of the two. Jackson Rathbone's doing the comic relief. But then they kind of move, but they kind of just say, okay, that's done. And that's just out of the character. We're going to leave Jackson Rathbone out of it for most of the film now. And it's just going to be a Michael J. White going over to the island in the Caribbean, which is nice, lovely, great location, provides some nice production value. A bit like, funnily enough, it's the second film set on a small island. This one's actually got a much higher population. It's St. Kitts and Nevis, which is about 53,000 approximately. So quite a bit bigger than that Channel Islands one on the line. But here we actually see the island, which is nice. So lots of fantastic locations in this. Michael J. White, comes in, does what he does. I like Michael J. White, but I'm very, very behind on his standalone action hero movies. I've seen him in supporting roles like One More Shot, but I haven't seen Outlaw Johnny Black. I haven't seen As Good as Dead, or I think The Commando might have been the most recent of his films, and that was not very good, really. I'm not sure if Gillian White was also in that, but he's definitely still got that star power, that charisma. He's really magnetic. And he still does the kicks and stuff, which is great. So you get some really nice moments. There's not a huge amount, but there's enough. And I think action fans will enjoy it. They'll enjoy the location. There's a bit where he goes and gets his weapons, which they've just copied blatantly from John Wick, which I think is a big mistake. I mean, I know it's a derivative film, but come on, sledgehammer and everything. It's like, really. I just thought that sort of took me out. I mean, maybe that was supposed to be a bit of fun thing that they threw in, but I don't know. I just thought that undermined it a bit. I did like all the supporting characters, and as you say, there's certain allegiances that you think he
we're
meets
just
up with people.
Jaded, and we just automatically assume, well, of course he's going to turn out to be a dirty cop or whatever. It's like.
But there's stuff like this, but Steven Seagal, there's a few. Steven Seagal did films with bits of this in it. So like when he did Fire Down Below, there's the whole, he goes to the sort of, a rural location. There's a conspiracy sort of thing going on, and one guy in charge of the whole town, and everyone's afraid of him because they all get their living from this guy. And in that case, it was Chris Christopherson. And, and there's a whole scene where Seagal goes to the church and he gives a talk and says, you've got to help me out here, guys. It's like, we've got to get on top of this, because this guy's not good. And the same thing happens in this, and I like all that stuff. I thought that was good. And I did think Gillian White was really good in her role as the ex-wife.
Good to see her in this again, yeah.
They've got a lot more depth to their relationship in this, which I think is really good. They've separated, but there's a lot of warmth. He says, I'm still married. He's like, he left several years ago and they've parted ways, but they never stopped loving each other really. And you realize later what that was. And they try to that's quite a big dramatic scene that they add in there, which you wouldn't typically have, which I thought was quite a bold move to sort of add that in there, but it definitely adds real weight to their relationship. I think their husband and wife in real life, on screen as well, they've got fantastic chemistry.
Yeah.
They just work really well. And I would say, the guy, just one quick thought before I step out, Eduardo Costa, I thought was really good as the villain. Very, very much a stock kind of bad guy, but he pulled it off really well. And I thought, there was that other film we watched, Freelance, which had a similar kind of character who was actually more of a good guy in the end. But this guy's very, very much a bad guy, which I liked. And so he was good. So, yeah.
He's a guy who's got serious anger management issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, he burns through a lot of men on his own.
Well, it's like Rich was saying, though. At the beginning, the murder of his brother. It's over that quick and over something.
Yeah, exactly.
So trivial.
Yeah.
Like I said, like Conservation's been shot. I didn't realise that was what it was until about 25, 30 minutes in. Because I'm just thinking, what was it then?
Yeah.
Because it can't be him. It's so trivial and throwaway.
Yeah.
That it can't be, but no, it is.
That's in a way. That's kind of refreshing in itself, though, isn't it? Because it isn't this sort of big dramatic, sort of thing. There's no, as you said, Rich, there's no conspiracy attached to it or anything. He hasn't uncovered some dark secret and he has to be killed for it. It's just this stupid minor infraction or genuine mistake that his boss has taken umbrage to and just killed him.
Well, the other film that this is referencing, I'd say, whether intentionally ripping it off or otherwise, but especially as you get towards the latter part of the film, the revenge kind of part sort of sets aside because he ends up being, not set aside entirely, but the quest is sort of resolved very quickly. It's like he knows where he stands. Yeah. You're the villain. He's having conversations with him and says, "I know what you've done," kind of thing, all that. But it turns into walking tall. He even takes over the role of like the local sheriff, the lead law enforcement, local sheriff kind of thing, to sort of clean up the town and sort of motivate the locals and stuff. So I think, this is a nice sort of mix and mash kind of throwback to 60s, 70s, 80s, action, thriller, or that kind of mix of, a little bit of revenge, a bit of cleaning up the town from the bad guy who's kind of, the crime boss, who's got everyone sort of under his thumb kind of thing. And although the opening is a bit extended with, that's performance and then the interview with the singer, and you think something's going to happen with them, but then actually this other thing from the side, I thought that was actually, although a bit arbitrary, in terms of the plot motivation, because it doesn't really have anything to do with, it's a sideswipe kind of thing. And I think it almost works. I think you kind of see it coming too much for it to completely work. But I thought it was an interesting way to start the film. Yeah. And actually the film doesn't play out entirely as I was expecting, because usually in that sort of thing, there's a witness, she's got to be protected, so they team up and all this sort of stuff. But he was like, basically, no, there's the witness, right, send her away. And that's it. She's gone, basically. And
even that whole sequence as well. I mean, going back to what I was saying about that particular character, who she's put into his care to then sort of, and then he has to sort of put her on a boat to send her off to get her to the airport, and for that whole bit, and until later on when he speaks to Michael J. White's partner, up until then you're thinking, what's happened to her? We just don't know. You get a bit of tension out of that. I thought that was quite good. Just want to talk about the director just for a second. So we've got Sean Paul Piccinino. Just murdered your name, Sean. Sorry, mate. Who we've come across before because he directed a film called American Fighter all the way back in 2019 with Sean Patrick Flanery, which we enjoyed. I seem to remember.
Yeah, enjoyed that,
we did enjoy that one.
Yeah.
Since then, he seems to have been doing a lot of like Christmas movies and stuff.
Yeah, I think he must be doing like Hallmark or something.
Yeah, it was Hallmark channel by the looks of it. But so this is obviously a bit of a change of pace for what he's been doing for the last few years. I think he could do quite well at this sort of stuff, to be honest. I don't think it's beyond him to, do something a bit more sort of complex with it all. I thought the actual action scenes for what they were well done. Michael J. White got to shine. We could see all his kicks and blocks and everything. It was all really good. So yeah, I think this is, he could definitely do this. So yeah, good on you. Okay, scores. Steve, how are you going to score The Island?
I'll give it a 6.
Mm-hmm. And Rich?
I'm going to give it a 7.
Mm-hmm. I did enjoy this. I think it is a 7. I could easily rewatch this.
Mm.
So, it's a comfort film, basically, is what it boils down to.
I just need to mention one more thing that really bugs me at the end of the film. I don't mind. I don't know if so there's a scene that happens at the end where Michael J. White's character is in a location, let's say. I'm not going to sort of give it away entirely, but somebody else comes along and sort of has a chat with him. And then we get a pull away sort of drone shot, which makes it very clear that that person would never have been there because the place where he was, he's like walking on like a boardwalky kind of thing. And I was like, no, there's nowhere to be unless he's miles away and shouting.
Yeah, I'm not usually
bad continuity there.
Yeah, I'm not usually good at spotting this sort of thing, but it was very clear that those were shot very individual bits and then mashed together later on, sort of thing. Yeah, but anyway, okay. So, Rich, how are you going to score it?
7.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what was it? 6, 2 7s for The Island. Go check it out. Our next film is Race for Glory, Audi versus Lancia, a film inspired by true events that occurred during the fierce rivalry between Audi and Lancia at the 1983 Rally World Championships. I remember there was a Top Gear segment where they highlighted, they documented this and went through what happened and how, Audi were the dominant force at the time because they had introduced four-wheel drive to their car. Everyone else was playing catch-up, basically. It's interesting the way the film goes into the detail at the beginning as to what that actually means, and why nobody else had figured it out. It was a sort of real piece of ingenious engineering that allowed them to do it. It was very interesting. And this film, I thought, was pretty damn good overall. I was kind of hoping it would be the actual documentary. What we'd get is a sort of dramatization of what happened. Although there is a very interesting sort of afterword, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. But anyway, Steve, what did you make of Race for Glory?
Right. Well, there seems to be a rake of films like this at the minute.
There's a what?
You've got a rake of these type of films.
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought you said something else then.
it's my chest. So I mean, you got like
Ferrari.
Ferrari. The one that with
Lamborghini one,
yeah. And I'll be honest, motor racing does nothing for me at all. I mean, like you, I used to watch Top Gear, but it was nothing to do with the cars. It was more for the comedy. I found it funny. This type of film really does nothing for me, and to be honest, I found it quite flat, quite boring. Even the rally sequences, I thought just seemed a bit slow. There's no excitement to them. I don't know. It just really didn't get me at all. But the performance was pretty good. I mean, the main guy,
Riccardo Scamaccio.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. You know what I mean? But the character just seemed so laid back. He was horizontal half the time. And he just didn't do anything to get my blood pumping whatsoever. I found it very, very boring and just not for me at all.
Fair enough. Rich, what did you make of this film?
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I mean, yeah, there's a whole load of these things, especially like if you encompass all the sort of brand story movies like Air that we get, or The Founder and all that sort of stuff. So this one, I actually thought from the title, because of the way the title was presented, it would be more about Audi, but it's not. It's about Lancia.
Well, they were the underdogs, so yeah.
Yeah. So it's which I didn't know going in. I didn't know anything about it. So the film is interesting because it comes up straight away saying an Italian and French co-production, which you don't normally see anything like that. Normally it would say just the names of the companies that are involved and stuff. But this is shot largely in English, but it's multi-language. There's Italian, there's German, also, which I liked. I thought that added a lot of color. It's not often we see films from Italy on the show. So I thought that was quite nice to see a reasonably budgeted, Italian production aiming for the international market, which, and being marketed. Originally, it was called To Win, or at least originally one of the posters. But they say they've kind of intentionally marketed it, not just in the UK, but in other territories, on the back of the Ford versus Ferrari kind of thing.
Yeah. So
they've kind of copied the aesthetic in the poster design and stuff. And there's even some stunt casting here, actually, because we've got Daniel Bruhl in a supporting role, who was also in Rush, which was the
James Hunt.
Yeah. Hunt and so Niki Lauda, that was it. So this is kind of feeding on different conventions and stuff, and telling its own version of a story. And like I say, I think Lamborghini is probably the closest, I would say, in terms of this is much more, in terms of budget and stuff, it's more that than it is big budget Hollywood movie. And they sort of do a lot here with archive footage. There's some racing scenes they've actually recreated and stuff. So there is stuff in there, but it's kind of it's kind of the footage, the rally footage, the new stuff, and the archive footage. The thing that sort of make me feel really tense was all the people just standing at the sides of these corners and stuff. And I was thinking, it's like Death Wish or what? It's like so incredibly dangerous. I know some people have done it, but I think it's a miracle that more people haven't done it. You've done it.
I've done it, yeah. When I was younger, I went with my uncle.
I did it with like the TT races, but with motorcycle racing on the Isle of Man. So I've done it from that perspective kind of thing, which is similar. But you think, geez, all these cars just hurtling around. It's not going to take much for it to just go knock somebody off. Anyway, there isn't a tragedy like that. There is a little bit of tragedy added into the story. Funnily enough, it made me think of the Gran Turismo film, which I watched recently, because that has kind of a similar structure as a lot of these films do. It's kind of the underdog story, and then there's like a dramatic turn of events and things like that. And there's a little bit of there's the stuff with the engineer, who is really reminding me a lot of the interplay between Lamborghini and his main guy in that Frank Grillo movie. And so I think I think it was sort of there was enough that was interesting for me, not being a fan of motorsports either. The period detail, I thought they did sort of carry that over. But I did think the climax felt a bit flat. I think, it sort of leads into, it sort of has this sort of race climax. And I kind of got to the end and I was like, oh, is that it? I was thinking it was going to be a bit more or something. And I was like, oh, okay then. All right. Yeah. So I thought it maybe peaks a little bit early. I thought the guy in the lead, Riccardo Scamaccio,
yeah,
who was Keanu Reeves' nemesis in John Wick Chapter 2, I believe. He's very charismatic. He was good. But it's kind of another one of those films which is about the person behind everything more than like the racing driver and that, which I thought was quite interesting. To say it's a bit more like Air, where Air is not about Michael Jordan. It's about the guys in the suits who are trying to get Michael Jordan to do stuff. In this, it's kind of him. He's coordinating the drivers and trying to get them to do the thing to help him achieve sales. That's what it's about. They're trying to win so they can sell the car.
Well, at the end of the day, they are working for Lancia in the same way that the rally drivers are working for Audi. And the whole point is, they're going to sell millions of cars off the back of, their achievements or
exactly.
not.
Which is similar to Air in a way, because that was all linked to sports, but it's actually we want to, exploit the sport to get the promotion to get the sort of adoration of this thing to sell our products and stuff. So it's I thought it was quite. I don't know anything about the story. I thought it was really interesting to see it from that sort of vantage point rather than being the
there's some good sort of off race anecdote bits in there. Like there's a scene where as part of the rules of rally driving, you have to have basically the rally car has to be a production car. So and you need 200 as a minimum you need 200 production cars produced in order to race, and they'd only done 103 at the time. So they do this whole elaborate scam where they trick the auditor into thinking that there's actually 200 cars by saying, oh, the rest of the cars are in another car park over there. I'll take you there. And then in the meantime, they drove all the cars around, to make it look like it's good. There's also the thing about bringing in a nutritionist to help the whole team to sort of keep them going, because the whole thing is like, it's an adrenaline sort of peaks and troughs all the time, and she's sort of there to help regulate their sleep patterns and their calorie intake and all that sort of stuff to sort of just keep them going throughout the season. I thought that was quite interesting. All the little sort of dirty tricks that he and Daniel Bruhl's character play on each other throughout the thing, like tricking him tricking Audi into putting snow tires on, after he'd already sort of like gritted the roads. And all this sort of stuff. So which is what there was stuff like that. I was thinking, am I supposed to be on his side? Because that seems really underhanded and sneaky. I was like, I'm not really. I don't really like what you've just done there. So am I supposed to be cheering for you or not? I don't know. It's a bit weird. It's gaming the system, it's gamesmanship. It's exploiting the rules to your advantage.
Well, they do the bit, don't they, where it says, "Oh, you've broken the rules." It goes, "I think fine. I haven't broken the rules." It doesn't say I can't do this. It says it doesn't say you shouldn't do it. It doesn't say you can't.
Just because it doesn't say I can't do it doesn't it doesn't mean I can or whatever. Anyway, so there's a lot of interesting bits in there. Now, right at the end of the film, we get the sort of the epilogue where it sort of explains what had happened to the various people, and the fact that Lancia went on with the Lancia Delta was the sort of like the dominant car for the next couple of seasons. But then we get this afterword, which basically said, everything you just seen is bullshit. it's like, they obviously skirted with the truth so much, or tweaked it for dramatic effect too much that people were starting to object. You can't really sort of say this is the true story of what happened. Possibly sort of one or two people got a bit upset with the way they were being portrayed in the film. But it's interesting how long and lengthy that particular disclaimer was at the end. It was, okay, you're obviously trying to avoid a lawsuit here, basically.
Well, I think you get it like 2 or 3 times, even. I mean, you get it like at the end,
they
at the beginning of credits. They put it all at the end credits as you would normally expect. But I think there might have even been something at the beginning. I might be completely wrong on that.
I think you do sort of say that. So, I mean, certain characters have been sort of amalgamated, into one.
They always. There's a lot of
that.
That's quite common in that. But yeah, they do make a very specific sort of long point of it at the end to sort of really cover themselves.
It's like I said. I mean, my interest in this was piqued because I remember the particular bit that Top Gear did, and Jeremy Clarkson, I think it was. So so I knew there was an interesting story there to be told, and I think they do a pretty decent job here. It's not particularly flamboyant, or it doesn't have a lot of visual flair. We do get a lot of sort of in-car driving scenes to sort of get a feel for it, but overall it was a bit. There
was one shot where the car came flying out of the corner, onto a straight, and the camera followed it. Looked like it was going to T-bone it, and then just turned out nice and went alongside it. That was the only bit of flair that I saw in the film.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. There's that one shot of it. That's nice.
Because the other thing about rally driving as well is you're not really you're competing against time rather than the other your competitors, as it were. That sounds a bit backward, but so you don't get like sort of thrilling overtakes or anything like that, or trying to bash somebody off the road. It's literally you got to get to the other place before in a quicker time than the next guy in order to win. So it is a little bit different, I guess. So not quite as cinematic as sort of Days of Thunder, I guess, or something along those sort of lines. But anyway, okay, Steve, how are you going to score Race for Glory?
I'll give it a 5.
And Rich?
I will give it a 6.
I'm going to join you on a 6. Yep. 2 6s and a 5 for Race for Glory, Audi versus Lancia. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? In Springtrap. When the Scooby Gang visits Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, they must investigate a mysterious case of the animatronics getting a bit quirky at night. Okay, I love Scooby-Doo. Ever since the first series. Okay, possibly not the Scrappy-Doo ones, but just about every variation of Scooby-Doo I've sort of watched. Mystery Inc. is my favorite version of it. I thought that was absolutely superb. And I think this, which is a sort of stop motion version of sort of Scooby-Doo, recreating the music, the credit sequence, the characters, I think it does an absolutely superb job. Yeah, I totally love this. Obviously, it's a mashup between Scooby-Doo and Five Nights at Freddy's. There's a lot of sort of good nods towards that franchise as well. Steve, what did you make of Scooby-Doo? Where Are You? In Springtrap?
Yeah, it was cracking. Not really what I expected, to be fair. I mean, I pressed play and it came up. And like I said, it is basically just a stop motion version of, well, not an original Scooby-Doo story. Obviously, it's the crossover with Five Nights at Freddy's. But the way they recreated the original title animation, it's exactly the same. It's just stop motion. I thought they've done a really, really good job on it.
So much good detail.
Yeah. The voices sounded spot on, to be fair. Even to the original. Now, I'm wondering, I'm looking at it on IMDb, and there's a couple of people, but some of them, like Shaggy, apparently that character, he was called Sweet Life of Shaggy. So I'm wondering if there's a bit of AI manipulation going on in there.
There's a bit of controversy over this. Yeah, there's apparently online. There's been people sort of saying that, you've used AI versions of the voices. I didn't notice. I mean, obviously, he hasn't got Casey Kelsom doing Shaggy, but I thought I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind. It just sounded too similar to the originals, if you know what I mean. I literally thought that it had been overdubbed from an original episode, and they just reanimated it. To be fair, at one point, I thought, no, I can't have done this.
Yeah, no. Apparently, what they did, they sampled bits from the original, and then redid it with our AI.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Mm-hmm. And Rich, you curated this one. Have we come across Egan Tyman before?
No, I think he's done a couple of short sort of other bits and pieces in a similar animated style. But no, this was, I think, the first thing I'd seen from him. And yeah, it's very, very impressive. I'm not sure, I don't recall whether Scooby-Doo's ever been done in like a stop motion style, but they're definitely, his particular style here is stop motion with a view to recreating or homaging sort of like late 60s Hanna-Barbera. And I think it really nails it. I think all the editing and stuff's fantastic. The characterization, the design and everything of the characters, which were, I believe, done in stop motion, but animated in Blender.
Yeah.
The voice stuff, that's quite interesting. The controversy about the AI, which I think was only a couple of the characters. I mean, the guy playing Shaggy is like an impressionist or somebody who sort of imitates that character. So he's I think he's got like a Twitter account and everything that has Sweet Life of Shaggy. It doesn't say his actual name, so that seems to be what he goes by rather than his actual name. And that's how he's credited here. The original upload, I don't know if it's the original upload or the redubbed version, which was done after the backlash. But either way, the film has had well over 2 million views, and deservedly so. It's really good pastiche mashup, like you say, with the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff, which perfectly work together. Yeah. I mean, it's a great mix of the two. The whole stuff with the Five Nights at Freddy villain and stuff. It's just, I mean, it's more that than it's not so much about the animatronic characters that like the movie was based on and everything. It's much more to do with like the bad guy behind the whole thing. So that's how it fits in nicely with the Scooby-Doo sort of, themes and plot, resolutions and all that sort of stuff. So it does exactly what you would want a Scooby-Doo pastiche to do.
Even the song.
And does it really well. Yeah, with the music and everything. And there's that song in there, which I presume is like a real song from the song that's sampled. During the montage sequence where they're chasing them around.
There's the chase song, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a new song that's been made to sound old or it's like a sourced one or something. I'm not 100% sure. I did want to look it up, but I didn't get a chance. But that all fitted well, great, period feel. And obviously they've added when he's animated it, he's added all the sort of aging sort of features and stuff, a bit like, people do with the grindhousey kind of stuff to try and make something look old. But that all really works nicely. It's not too distracting. It adds to the sort of, it's all 4:3. It sort of adds to the feel of authenticity of the whole thing. It doesn't feel like it's not parody, but it's very respectful.
Yeah.
It's just a sort of a really good sort of what if kind of fan film scenario.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoy. I mean, as much as I enjoy the actual show as I did when I was a kid, the Mystery Inc. version is a good update because it's sort of it does sort of poke fun at some of the bits in it. With the very first episode, they get arrested for meddling and things like that. It's very good. There's been some really good parodies over the years or good mashups. There was a great one with Johnny Bravo, which really, really nailed it. Well, there's the Scooby-Doo project, which is the Blair Witch one. That was really good. That the Cartoon Network did. Yeah, it's just a very sort of enduring thing, and it's really great to sort of see obviously other fans putting so much time and effort into a project like this and putting it off with such aplomb, basically.
I mean, quite different to this. I know you've seen it as well. Is the Mystery Incorporated pilot episode from a couple of years ago. So it's not a short film. It's like just over 50. It's like 50 plus minutes long. But that's a really good.
It was very good.
Teen series kind of take on
It's basically Riverdale, but Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
But that worked really. It's a real shame that no one's run with that. But that was very good as well. Yeah, you're right.
The other thing I wanted to mention was it's just a complete aside, but there's a book called Meddling Kids, which I've
read it. Yeah.
You have? Yeah,
it is really good.
Because that's the whole thing about that is that it's sort of homaging or parodying the Scooby-Doo kind of thing, and this was before, I think, Stranger Things, so it's kind of it's sort of doing similar things, if I recall correctly. Tell me a little bit about it. Sorry, just a brief aside, like a quick synopsis.
Well, basically, it's about this bunch of kids who do sort of solve a mystery when they're young, but then something happens and they all sort of disappear, and then sort of drawn back to their town as adults. A bit like it, in a way,
Right.
And it turns out, things are starting to kick off again in their town. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I must admit, I thought it was very good.
I'll have to check that out at some point. So Springtrapped, very highly recommended animated short. Whether you see I don't know if the original version still exists, but there are versions that are labeled redub and stuff that you can find if you're concerned about the AI usage. But it wasn't. If I hadn't read anything about it, it wouldn't have come up, and I don't think that's really to the detriment of the project. I think the animator was just, he's just trying to do his best with really limited resources, and he, did something that upset people, which I can understand why they're upset, because there's the whole thing about the the strike and everything that's been going on recently about the way voice actors and stuff are being, or actors in general, are at risk of being replaced by technology and stuff. So these things can start out small and get bigger, but I think that I would definitely not be on the team of, don't go and watch this film because it's got some AI stuff. The director himself said, okay, fair enough, I've heard what you've said, I didn't even think about that, it's a good point, I've tried to address it, and I think that's as much as you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't score the shorts, but we do recommend you check them out, and we certainly recommend you check this out, and we're going to put a link in the footnotes. Go check it out. A DTV throwback this week is Vendetta. A detective pushed beyond his limits will stop at nothing for vengeance. When his wife is killed by a criminal that he put away, Mason, a hard-nosed detective, deliberately gets arrested in order to get revenge. Okay, so this is from WWE Studios, one of many films that they were putting out. We had things like No One Lives, which didn't actually, I had one wrestler in it. It wasn't really sort of a wrestling showcase, but it did come from WWE. There's a few others. The Day, there's another one with Catherine Isabel with one, I can't remember which wrestler it was. There's loads, basically. They took over the 12 Rounds franchise, for example. There was the Condemned franchise. So
the Marine, they started the Marine.
The Marine, of course, yeah.
Scorpion King.
Yeah. Involved in those. And to be honest, I think, most of them have been very watchable films. I've enjoyed most of them over the years. This is directed by Jen and Sylvia Soska, who did American Mary and a recent remake of Rabid, and they've been working with WWE and other things as well. And this is a pretty violent film. This goes all out, basically. You've never seen Dean Cain like this, for sure. The wrestler is a guy called The Big Show, also known as Paul Wright in this. He is just fucking massive. And I think he does a good job here, he is a menacing bastard in this film, and I think he does a good job. Yeah, I did like this. I like this a lot. It's messy and violent and horrible, and I think works really well. Steve, you're well known for liking your blood. How do you make of Vendetta?
It was all right. Like you say, it's messy, it's violent, but to me, it was. I mean, it's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. He kills his wife, so he kills his brother and gets sent to the same prison. It's never going to happen.
They do at least say, somebody pulled some strings and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, after that point, then he's just Dean Cain either beating the shit out of someone or getting the shit kicked out of him.
Mm.
And it just gets a little bit samey. You know what I mean? I know that, you've got the usual, the governor's in on it and he's running a dodgy operation and they're working together and, it's the same as any other prison movie, basically. And yeah, it's just a little bit samey for me. I'll be honest. I mean, it's quite nasty. I mean, quite nasty scene, like the bit with the sink. Jesus, that that must have hurt that. And
the whole bit with the shank as well, when he with the pen.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the end credits got me as well. Where it's basically showing you how they make shanks in prison.
Basically.
What type of different shanks they got and what they used to make them. Surely they can't get away with it. Yeah. But yeah, he's there. One thing I think they got right is the Dean Cain's wife. She's quite a small person.
Yes.
So when the Big Show's got older, and Big Show,
he's
6'8", 6'9", and built like big shit,
Yeah. When he picks her up, he's like half the size of him, isn't she? Basically.
Yeah, because he's always been huge. It's not something. Wrestling's not something I watch all the time, but I do remember seeing him a few times, 3 years ago and stuff. And when he picks her up and just like kind of throw it, she looks absolutely tiny, and I think they've done that really well. And Dean Cain surprised me as well. Because to me, he's always quite.
It's always Clark Kent, isn't he?
Yeah, the affable kind of. Well, this is a fucking hard ass, you know what I mean? He doesn't like no shit, doesn't like no prisoners. He's all out. And which was a decent, wrestling, they call it a heel turn in a way, But just, it's a completely different character from what I've seen him do before. Even that Kidnap film we watched a while back, he was still quite an affable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's just a hard ass in this. Really impressive. Well, like I say, as good as the performances and the characters were, it just got a little bit samey for me. It was just an hour and a half of him beating someone up or someone beating him up, and that was about it until the last 10 minutes where all out right issues, which is what I expected anyway,
Yeah.
But not bad.
Cool. Rich, how about you? What did you make of Vendetta?
Yeah, I was quite surprised by it, actually, because it does, and it's a bit like The Island in a way that it's got a very standard kind of setup. But the difference was with this was that it kind of went in a direction that I completely didn't. I mean, there were things that happened in The Island that I wasn't expecting, but they were all very much of a standard, sort of combination of genre tropes kind of thing that you would have expected. Whereas this kind of went off the rails a bit more. It sort of sticks within the. I know he's not an undercover cop because he puts himself in the prison, but we've seen variations on the cop or agent goes into a prison to reach a certain objective and uncovers things, whatever. So, but in this case, it's. I mean, with other example, whether it's there was a Knight Rider episode, Death Warrant with Van Damme had that kind of thing. Naked Gun with Leslie Nielsen.
Riot. Dolph Lundgren is exactly this.
Yeah.
Guy gets himself sent to prison for this exact same thing.
Interesting. I haven't seen Riot, so
good. You should see that.
So the setup is basically we have that initial conflict. He catches him. He gets out. He goes after the Big Show goes after his wife, and then he finds him and he's done that. The thing they then do is Dean Cain's a bit on the edge, so he basically gets some clippers and shaves his head around the side to make him look a bit, sort of a bit edgier. But which I thought, okay, they're kind of doing the clean because Dean Cain, as you guys were saying, he's Mr. Clean Cut. He's like Clark Kent, Superman, kind of. He always is that guy generally. But no, they really do take him, quite far. And I think this is down to the Soska sisters. Yeah. They've really taken him out of that comfort zone and made him into this kind of monster because the movie, it isn't about him sort of, doing the usual prison thing of, think about something like Christopher Lambert in Fortress, where he's himself, but he's going to sort of rally around. He's going to make friends with the old guy in his cell or whatever, and they're going to rally around.
He's not being corrupted by the system, which is what we get here, isn't it? He's like, well,
he's not engaging with the system and stuff, is he? He's in this one, he like really gets essentially quite feral. He becomes, he just starts going after people, and he's like so I was thinking as I was watching this, I was thinking, this is Dean Cain's avengement. Is what it is.
Basically,
he's so unhinged in this, and he essentially becomes a background character as the film's unfolding, because all he's doing is attacking people. So there's not really anything. He's not engaging with people. He's not having dialogue scenes very, very often. He does occasionally. He goes and sees the warden, and they have some stuff going on. But they essentially make him this beast who's just kind of unstoppable. Now I thought I'm on sort of Steve's wavelength with the film is just crazy nonsense. I can't imagine that that this would be allowed to happen at all. There would be. I mean, he's taking out people, and there would be inspections stuff. There would be stuff going on, but there's no. It's almost like this warden has like complete unrealistic control over that prison environment. But anyway, the guy Michael Eklund playing the warden, he really reminded me of like a cross between Alan Rickman in Die Hard and Andrew Divoff. I thought he was quite entertaining. There's something called a little bit pantomime about him and stuff, but he was quite a fun villain. It is mainly Dean Cain's show, but the Big Show gets a lot of really good scenes. I really liked him. I thought he had great presence, and he is very imposing. So that all worked really well.
Yeah. I think we were saying about Dean Cain being pushed by the Oscars to really go feral and really push it. But similarly, I think the Big Show, bearing in mind this is a WWE production, and they are pretty precious about their stage personas, usually. And he does sort of put, he is an evil bastard in this. He really is. It goes beyond being a heel in the ring, sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's just, and I was quite surprised how far they pushed it. Right? He's not a pantomime villain. He's just like, he is an animal basically. Which I thought was really refreshing. Having seen so many of these WWE films, to see someone who was sort of so outside of his, sort of stage persona.
Yeah, well, one of the previous film that the Oscars did before this was the WWE Cain film, See No Evil 2.
Yes, that's right.
But that was Cain. In those movies, Cain is essentially playing a variation on his stage persona, who was this evil, he's supposed to be this sort of bad guy sort of character. Anyway, they're doing something a bit. I think I haven't seen that. I've seen the first film. I haven't seen the Oscars sequel. But the Big Show, I'm not sure on whether is he in the wrestling world. Was he kind of a bad guy character, or is he more...
He's on the fence kind of thing. It really depends who he's wrestling against.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the Undertaker's brother.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
I never
originally when it came out. I think So, I mean, a lot of people thought he was actually the same bloke, because Cain used to wear the mask all the time. But then that all they had to take it apart and stuff. So I'm sure he was supposed to undertake it.
Okay,
that's interesting.
But yeah, the violence, as I say, I think it's because of the Oscars, and they do like. I mean, this was, I think, at the time, the only non-horror film they'd ever made. Might even be still the only non-horror film they've ever made. But it's definitely got. It's got a mean streak to it, definitely.
Got a lot of blood and guts.
Lot of blood and guts. I mean, Dean Cain basically makes these sort of improvised knuckle duster kind of things, with bolts sticking out of them to really do a lot of damage. Which is like, whoa, Jesus! Which is sort of again sort of leaning me into sort of thinking about things like Avengement. But he's a real psycho, basically. Dean Cain's character becomes essentially quite a psychopath, and I wasn't really sure what he was aiming to do, because he kind of has the opportunity to take out the Big Show, or at least go for him at a couple of points, but he kind of focuses on all the supporting characters, the background people or whatever. And I know he's sort of trying to thin the herd, so the guy maybe he's got less people to rely on.
Exactly, yeah.
But I didn't really think that was that compelling a reason. Like, it didn't make it. It seems like he could have just got the job done a lot more quickly, especially towards the end, because he kind of has his moment and then walks away from him, and then they come back. I think, no, they're not going to end it like that, are they? Because, you know, they haven't resolved it. And I was like, no, they do circle back to it because there's a big riot scene and everything. But yeah, I thought it was definitely not what I was expecting. Really interesting to see a different side of, you know, really interesting to see Dean Cain do something this, you know, brutal, you know, and I thought he did a really good job. I mean, very much playing against type. Starts out as the guy you expect him to always be, and then they sort of really make him into this brute, and convincingly so. You know, I didn't for a second. I wasn't laughing at. I was like, oh, it's Dean Cain doing that one. No, I was with him. I was with the character.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out. You can find this on Amazon Prime at the moment, possibly other services as well. I wouldn't be surprised, but definitely worth checking out. I also recommend Riot with the Dolph Lundgren and Matthew Rhys film, which is very, very similar in plot, but with better stage action, I must admit. But there you go. Okay, thank you for listening. That is the end of the show. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also check out the Short Shots, where we have a whole library of links to some really, really cool shorts. Other than that, thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.